Out
Please.
of 100 people, 4 will get the message.
Trump administration officials are discussing ways to encourage other countries to adopt the dollar as their primary currency to counter a China-led charge to erode the greenback's global dominance. Staff from government departments, including the Treasury and the White House, have met with our guest today. He is Professor Steve Hanke of Johns Hopkins University and a leading expert on dollarization. We're going to discuss with him how the administration could promote the policy. Professor, welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show here on ITM Trading. Always good to be with you.
Well, it's always good to be with you. Great to see you.
Professor, you say this is a policy that they are taking very seriously. My question is, at what stage of the game are we in?
Well, I think things are, the train's on the track, and you never can really know in Washington how fast you're going to end up arriving at and when you're going to arrive at the station. But it's pretty heavy duty lift. It's interesting. It's the same kind of thing. Nobel laureate Robert Mundell and I were advising the Chinese on about 15 years ago. Their concern was how can we internationalize and spread the use of the Chinese currency, the yuan or RMB, and we advised them on that. Now I'm in the same exercise really with the Trump administration, and I'm coming at it from a lot of experience and writing. I think I've written 24 books on this topic. So it's not only an academic exercise, I've actually been involved in the architect of 2 dollarizations. One in Montenegro in 1999. I was a state counselor and the chief advisor to the president of the time, Djukanovic. And we dumped the Yugoslav dinar, the Serbian dinar, it was called at the time. Remember, Montenegro was part of the rump Yugoslavia. It was Serbia and Montenegro at the time, and the currency was the Serbian dinar. It was hyperinflating, so we got rid of that and replaced it with the German mark. And then shortly thereafter, in 2000,
Ecuador.
I did the same thing in Ecuador.
Yep.
We got rid of the sucre and replaced it with the dollar. But there are other ways. So that's one way to spread the use of the dollar. You just get rid of a domestic currency and replace it with the greenback. So that's one way. The other way is what's called a currency board, and I've done 5 of these actually. Argentina had kind of a quasi currency board, not the real thing, in 1991. And in that case, the peso was issued, and it was backed 100% with U.S. dollar reserves, and the peso became a clone. It traded at a fixed exchange rate with the U.S. dollar, and so it was a clone of the dollar. You keep with a currency board, you keep the local money, but it trades at a fixed exchange rate with the anchor currency, which in this case would be the U.S. dollar, and it's credible because you have to have 100% U.S. dollar reserves backing up the domestic currency that you're issuing. So in that case, these clones of the U.S. dollar would exist, and they'd be clones because they'd be backed 100% with U.S. dollar reserves. Now the third way, so those are all governmental in the sense that the U.S. dollar under full official dollarization is legal tender. It's a unit of account. It's the way you pay your taxes, the way you keep your books and so forth. If it's a currency board, the local currency that's issued and backed by the dollar, that's legal tender. And then there's another way, and that is with stable coins. If you have a dollar-based stable coin and it's let's say you follow the regulations of the Genius Act in the United
Right.
States. In principle, it's a private currency board because you're issuing a token. It's backed 100% with U.S. dollar reserves, and it is trading at a fixed exchange rate, the token with the U.S. dollar. But that's private, and that wouldn't be legal tender. So that's different than a currency board. That's a government entity. A private entity, whatever tokens they issue, they aren't legal tender, and the regulations and so forth are a little bit different under the Genius Act than a currency board, which I know all about this because I've designed them and written the laws for these currency boards, and Estonia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Bosnia Herzegovina. So that's where the background is. It's a serious strategy that's being thought through and developed. Let me stress, there's been no decision on this. I mean, Trump will decide, basically. At the end of the day, Trump will do what Trump does. He will decide.
Whoa, let's stop here for just a moment because this is critical. When the next financial crisis hits, accounts will be locked just like 2008, and it will be too late to do anything about it. I've reported on global markets for over 20 years, and what's happening right now is unlike anything we've faced before. The window to act is closing fast, and the opportunity is now. That's why we've created the Private Wealth Playbook. It's free, and it shows you how to move into the proper gold and silver strategies, proven to protect and grow wealth when everything else breaks down. Don't wait until after the crisis hits. Click below or go to DannyReport.com and download the Private Wealth Playbook right now. Now back to the show. I want us to take a step back because it is such a gift to have you on the show, given how you are in the room and multiple rooms of where it has happened and is happening. My question is, how concerned are they about the greenbacks erosion here in terms of global dominance? Are they for them to call you in and be like, look, we need a strategy or we need to stop this. If you had to rank their level of concern here, what would it be?
Well, let's put it this way. It's the de-dollarization, especially led by China, Russia, and the members of BRICS or the global South. That kind of thing is something that's on the radar screen. Otherwise, they would have never called me if they didn't have a concern. I don't know. You're asking me, well, how do you rate the level of concern? Well, let's put it this way: who was meeting with me? We had members of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, members of the National Security Council, members of the National Economic Council, White House staffer, and the U.S. Treasury. So I would say that's a pretty big phalanx of people, and we're talking about people who are professionals. These are the experts. These meetings are like a graduate seminar. These people are prepared. They're asking a lot of questions, and I think I answered all the questions adequately and prepared documents for them, and ultimately was given homework assignments. And the homework assignment, one of the homework assignments was, well, Hanke, you think this is such a great idea and so forth. Give us a list of the countries that are potential. I went through a screening exercise with, I think I had 8 metrics, and I put everything into the metrics, and I looked at over 200 central banks, 200 currencies that exist in the world, and filtered everything out and came down to, they have all the rankings, but let's say the top 50. would be prime candidates. Now, two I gave off the top of my head in the first meeting. One obvious one is Argentina, and another one is Lebanon. Two countries that I've worked a lot on, especially Argentina. I mean, after all, in Argentina, I was advising President Menem from 1989 to 1999, and his Minister of Economy, Domingo Cavallo, in 1995 and 1996. So, and just a footnote, I know a little bit about Argentina because I was the president of Toronto Trust Argentina in Buenos Aires. In 1995, it was the best performing emerging market mutual fund in the world. So that's there's some background.
Yeah, well, obviously, for me, the obvious candidate would be Argentina. Now, they have said that there has been. I mean, they've basically squashed any talks that this is happening, but they are an obvious candidate.
Well, they're a candidate because the candidate, President Milei, before he became president, what was his primary objective was to mothball the central bank and the peso and put them in museums and dollarize, officially dollarize,
Right.
and I think that was one of the main reasons he was elected president. Then the thing got kind of shoved to the back burner, and it was shoved that way primarily by the International Monetary Fund. Argentina is the biggest debtor to the International Monetary Fund that's out there, and right away after the election, the IMF came in and said, this isn't a good idea. We're opposed to it. That's the same thing they did with us in Ecuador, by the way.
And why did the U.S. step in to calm the situation in Argentina?
Well,
so all this timing just makes me think, well, they want this chummy relationship. They want them to dollarize.
Well, it gets a little bit complicated in the sense that we're meeting and discussing an overall kind of, shall we say, global strategy to counter the de-dollarization movement with a pro-dollarization movement. Okay. So that's going on. I'm working on that. And then all of a sudden, predictably, and I said this was going to happen, they had yet another peso crisis erupted in Argentina. And at that time, the U.S. just immediately stepped in and said, you know, we've got a bazooka and we're going to do everything we can to bail out and support Argentina and Milei specifically, because of course Trump is a pal of Milei's, and he sees Milei as some like-minded soul who is potentially pushing back the pink tide, pushing back the left in South America. You've got Colombia, Brazil, Venezuela, and others. That's the pink tide. And so the idea is the U.S. would be supporting Milei in Argentina because he's anti-pink tide.
Now, the question is, Professor, would it be enough? Let's say let's play out the scenario that they get 2-3 other countries to dollarize. I guess the question is, how many countries will it take to stop a de-dollarization trend?
Oh, I think for one thing, if Argentina dollarized, there'd be a wave of dollarizations occurring. I mean, I think you'd essentially end up with virtually all of South America being dollarized.
Interesting.
Either with a currency board or with official dollarization. So the currency board, remember, they keep their own local currency. The currency is a clone of the U.S. dollar backed by the U.S. dollar 100%. That's one option. The other option is we just get rid of the local currency like we did in Ecuador. And by the way, like they did in El Salvador a year after we did it in Ecuador, El Salvador, Manuel Hines was the architect of that. and it works perfectly. And then we've got another country in Latin America, Panama. It's been dollarized for over 100 years. We're talking about official dollarization.
Understood.
Latin America is de facto dollarized anyway, because anything in Latin America of any value that's traded, any asset, you need dollars. And they've got more dollars under the mattress than you can shake a stick at. Remember, about 70% of all the U.S. notes, physical notes, U.S. dollar notes, reside overseas. They don't reside in the United States.
It sounds to me, and tell me if I got this wrong, but if Argentina, let's just play out this hypothetical situation. Argentina officially dollarizes. It almost sounds like game over. The U.S. won. They're staying put.
Well, I would say that the big winner in Argentine dollarization would be Argentina. There'd be such a huge positive confidence shock and boom in Argentina that it would knock your socks off. And that's why you'd get this demonstration effect. If they did it, there would be a huge boom. There'd be, for once, stability. You'd eliminate banking crises. You'd eliminate currency crises.
Yeah.
You'd eliminate all the defaults on the debt that they have, because the key to understanding this, the biggest debt deadbeat in the world is Argentina. They've defaulted multiple times on their international debt as well as their domestic debt. Now, why does that happen? I've done an analysis with Professor Frank Warnock at the University of Virginia. Happens to be one of my former students, by the way, but it's a very distinguished professor at the University of Virginia. And we analyzed what has happened to the debt that's been accumulated in Argentina since 1995. So they've accumulated $177 billion in debt. And we have calculated 76% of that debt has left via capital flight. It doesn't stay in Argentina. So they accumulate debt, but only about 25% of it stays in Argentina. Now let me walk you through this little exercise. Let's assume that you borrow $100 and the interest rate on that is 8%, which is roughly the interest rate that's being paid by Argentina on all of its debt, 8%. So that means that you have to invest the 100 that you've borrowed and into an investment that at least earns 8% a year so that you can service the debt. So you have to invest and generate $8 in this exercise. But if 25% of that money is all that remains that you have available to invest, to generate 8, that 25%, the 25 has to earn a 32% rate of return. Well, this is just not in the cards. And this is why they're in a doom loop. They default all the time because no one wants to be in the peso. So you have capital flight, 75, 76% of the capital coming in goes out. And that's why they default all the time. So it's a pretty, once you really think the thing through carefully, which took me quite a while to do, but I finally did it. you see that this money, the bailout money that's going in from the United States, it's not going to solve the problem. The only thing that will solve the problem is to get rid of the peso and stop the capital flight so that all the money coming into Argentina, which, by the way, there'd be a flood of money coming into Argentina if the dollar was the currency, but all the money coming in would stay. And there's been such a deficiency of investment for decades in Argentina that the potential for good projects with very high rates of return very bankable projects would be tremendous.
It sounds to me that Malay would, why wouldn't he welcome this? And maybe he does want it.
Well, I said sand in the gears by the IMF. Now, I think if President Trump indicated that he was backing this kind of idea, I think the IMF would, be backed into a corner and moved out of the picture. So that problem would be removed. There is a problem, and many people, it isn't a problem, but the problem is what they call feasibility. They say, well, the Banco Central is insolvent and they don't have enough money to dollarize. This is not correct. The kind of official line is that they'd need $30 or $40 billion to dollarize.
Okay.
That's not true. We dollarized in Ecuador when the central bank was insolvent. Now, how did we do that? All you need to dollarize, you don't need net foreign reserves that are positive. All you need is gross foreign reserves that are positive, and positive enough to exchange, whatever exchange rate is determined, the dollars that you have in foreign reserves for the pesos outstanding, the M sub zero, the monetary base. You have to be able to convert the monetary base that's in pesos into dollars. So all you have to have is enough gross reserves.
Got it. Right.
To do that, and they do have it. I mean, I've run the numbers, and they do it. So this infeasibility thing is just a nonsense. The Minister of Finance keeps repeating that it's not feasible, and even Malay has hinted that it's not feasible. But he's getting bum advice, bum information by people who've never dollarized. I mean, I know what I'm talking about from an academic point of view, but I've actually done it.
Fascinating. And you brought down the inflation in Ecuador from 96% to 4% in 18 months.
Well, that's right. And now what's the inflation rate in Ecuador? I think it's about 0.
That's incredible.
It's even lower. It's even lower than the United States. I haven't looked in the last month or two, but it was hovering around 0 in Ecuador.
I want to bring up, because you mentioned the Genius Act. So this is a segue, but still tied in. So one, I think the Genius Act is important because not enough people understand the implications of the Genius Act. Now, when you brought it up, Professor, are you saying that is another way to stop de-dollarization?
Oh yes, because the stable coins that are issued and regulated, and under the purview, the U.S. purview, the Genius Act is a U.S. piece of legislation. In any stable coin that comes out and is being regulated and under the Genius Act, they require dollar assets, dollar denominated assets. And one thing that, for example, Scott Bessent, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury, has indicated, this is a great deal because it increases the demand for U.S. treasuries. That's been the argument in favor of stable coins and so forth. Their pitch is that this will increase the demand for U.S. dollar denominated assets, namely the things that are specified in the Genius Act are U.S. treasuries.
Do you buy that?
Of course.
You agree? You think so?
I mean, by definition, by law, it has to increase. Whether it's going to be significant increase or not, I don't know. But technically, that is what has to happen.
Okay. But if they're looking at they have looked at the Genius Act, obviously, as one path, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Genius Act or convincing other countries to dollarize. They could do both plays, correct?
Well, what I'm talking about is official dollarization,
Correct.
either to get rid of their local currency and replace it with a dollar. That's one thing. The other thing would be a dollar-based currency board that would be also governmental, because the currency board would replace the central bank in whatever the country happened to be, and that country would issue its local money via the currency board. That local money would be at a fixed exchange rate with what? The US dollar, which would be the anchor currency. And the requirement would be that for every domestic unit of currency that was issued, you'd have 100% US dollar backing of that with the currency board. So that the two avenues that I'm exploring, it isn't the Genius Act and stable coins, which are private, but rather public.
Yep. And bird's eye view, what would be the implications of the Genius Act for people?
Well, the Genius Act in principle, again, this is in principle, is that a token issued as a stable coin would be a clone of the US dollar. That's what these tokens are. The people don't realize. They think it's some magic or something. No, I mean, if you're following the letter of the Genius Act, it's being enforced and everything, then the tokens being issued under the stable coin, whatever it happens, whatever you want to call it, they're nothing more than clones of the US dollar.
Isn't that I don't know, isn't that a digital central bank currency?
Well, no, because it is
not legal tender.
It is digital, but it isn't a central bank digital currency because it's private and it is not legal tender.
But then what would be the benefits of using that versus the dollar?
Well, I find myself at a strain to figure out what the benefits are. That's my position has always been that this is all unneeded and unnecessary, and even the Genius Act was unnecessary because there's a book full of bank regulations that regulate banks that are, should have been used just to regulate these stable coins, for example.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with also, is what is the point of the Genius Act?
Well,
how's it supposed to, is it supposed to make life better for us?
That's what they tell us. That's what the promoters of these things are telling us. So, but I think it's important to realize that what we're talking about now and discussing is complements. It's in the same realm as the stable coin that's dollar based, but it is different. It has different aspects to it, and I think to spend a lot of time debating stable coins and so forth, it gets you off out in the weeds. That
yeah. Okay, Professor, really, really good insights. I'd love to get your thoughts now, just how gold fits in all of this. I haven't spoken to you in a while, and look at this run up in gold prices, even though, yes, we've consolidated, we've come down, but still an incredible year for the metal. Just your general thoughts on this market.
Well, the general thought, two thoughts. One is where I think this bull market will end up peaking out. I think it's going to be around $6,000 an ounce. And the basis for that is to look back at the huge bull market we had in 1979, 1980, and look at the value of gold then as a percent of disposable personal income per capita. And it was about 9.9%. So let's just say 10%. Take 10%.
Okay.
take 10% of current disposable personal income per capita, and you get it's a little over 6,000, but just round it off at 6,000. Okay, so that's point one. Now, point two, you say the consolidation. Well, it is consolidating, and it's consolidating though around 4,000. If you look at the call options, and this is the key, the call and puts. We've got those coming due in November 24th. We've got 8,514 options. This is as of yesterday. I haven't updated it. The call options, that's 3.4 billion is being bet that the market will be above 4,000 on November 24. And the put options, we've got 4,812, and that makes $1.9 billion being bet on the possibility of being below 4,000. So the punters are betting at a ratio of, about 2 to 1 roughly, that will be above 4,000 late this month on the 24th when those options expire. If that makes any sense. I think we're definitely consolidating. It's consolidating around 4,000 with those with skin in the game betting that it's going to move above 4,000 by the end of the month. So what's interesting about the market is that there are these correlations, of course, never really, as they say, correlation doesn't imply causation. But in 1979, when did the market take off? It took off after we froze the Iranian assets, with the Iranian Revolution.
Of course.
Now, when did the market take off now? When we froze the Russian assets. So, what goes around comes around, Daniela.
That's what they tell me. That's what they tell me, Professor.
Okay.
If I don't get a question in about government shutdown with you, and I'll wrap with this, I promise. I don't want to monopolize your time. We know the stats. It's gonna be like the longest running government shutdown in history. My question to you, Professor, is more proactive. Instead of dwelling on the shutdown, it's how can we avoid government shutdowns going forward?
Well, the first thing is if the Congress would be following its the normal budgeting process that they should be following, rather than getting all these exemptions and side deals and so forth going, we probably wouldn't have a shutdown. But they're not following the normal procedure, but they never do. So that's one thing. The other thing, the only way to really fix this problem, this budget problem, is to have a constitutional convention and change the U.S. Constitution. This would be done on Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. We have enough states that have actually requested. We have over 2/3 of the states. We have 36 states. We only need 2/3. That's 34. We have 36. But the Congress, again, they won't hold a convention. They're supposed to, but they stonewall it. So you get the politicians doing things that they shouldn't be doing, actually. And hopefully we'll get some attorney generals in some of these states that have requested a constitutional convention that bring a case that goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then settles the thing, and we have a convention, which we're supposed to have. And what would happen in the convention? The convention would focus only, it wouldn't be a runaway convention looking at the whole U.S. Constitution, trying to redo the whole thing. It would be a focused one, limited to discussing the budget and the budget process. And what would be my idea would be something like the Swiss debt break that would be put in, that would require the budget to be balanced and the government spending to be constrained to never grow above the rate of growth in the economy. If the real rate of growth in the economy is 3%, then the budget could not grow beyond 3%. So you put you change the Constitution like the Swiss did, and you put the politicians in a straitjacket, basically.
Right. Wouldn't that be that's what we need? Politicians.
Politicians in a straitjacket.
I love it.
And by the way, this dollarization thing and the currency board thing that we were talking about, what does that do with these countries? That puts the politicians in a straitjacket, because with dollarization or a dollar-based currency board, you don't have a local central bank who can extend credit to the government. The only way a government could get money from a currency board is to take foreign exchange in to take foreign exchange into the currency board, take dollars in, and what would happen at the fixed exchange rate? Then they would get the local currency, but there'd be no credit created.
I'm at a loss for words with the shutdown, Professor. Can we just please get the air traffic controllers back in the towers?
Yeah, what are you having long waits?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just have you heard?
Yeah, well, I've heard rumors about this and listened to the news, but
yeah, ground stops, JFK, Newark.
Since my modus operandi is to walk from
yes,
walk from Mrs. Hanke and my own condo to Johns Hopkins University, it takes me about 15 minutes.
You are blessed. You are blessed. You are blessed. And you know what I was thinking this whole time? Your students are blessed to have you as a professor. I hope they know how lucky they are to have such a wealth of knowledge educating them.
I'm going to have them listen to you.
Yes, tell them to listen to, I know a few things. I've learned a few things. So they are lucky. Professor, thank you for your time.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Great to be with you again.
Great discussion. We'll continue it. And thank you all for watching. We'll have more great content coming your way, so be sure to stay tuned to the Daniela Cambona Show here on ITM Trading. Thank you for watching.
You want to know how to be a successful investor? The answer is stay with what you know. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to TV people, internet people. Just stay with what you know. If I told you you can only have 20 investments in your life, you would be very careful. You wouldn't be jumping in and out, listening to hot tips every day, every month. You would stay with what you know, and you would become a successful investor. Everybody watching this knows a lot about something, whether it's fashion or cars or sports or something. When you see something that you know is going to be successful and exciting, don't just say, oh, that's going to be great. Don't tell all you. Then you go and you do your research and you figure out how to and if you should invest and how to invest, and then you invest. You will know it long before I will, or long before other people in the investment community. You will also know when to sell, because you will know when something's going to change again. Nobody likes to hear it. Everybody wants a hot tip. Everybody wants to be rich this month. In those days, we did nothing but focus and concentrate and dig deep and dig deep and dig deep.
Hi there, Greg.